I'd like to call the November 25th meeting of the Palm Springs Parks and Recreation Commission to order. And we would like to all stand as Aliyah Abayani comes up and leads us in the pledge to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Aliyah is from our Pee Wee Recreation Department at the Palm Springs Parks and Recreation Department.
Yes.
Thank you so much. At this time, Director, could we have the roll call?
Chair Boley,
Present.
Vice Chair Caldonado,
Present.
Commissioner Armstrong,
Here.
Commissioner Cohen,
Here.
Commissioner Goodman,
Here.
Commissioner Young called, said he would be unable to attend tonight, Commissioner Crawford, Commissioner Diaz,
Here.
and Commissioner Lamort.
Here. Thank you. Can we have a report on the posting of the agenda?
The agenda for this meeting was posted at City Hall, the Palm Springs Leisure Center, and the City of Palm Springs website on Wednesday, November 20th, as required by established policies and procedures.
Thank you. I think all the commissioners received a copy of our October 28th minutes. Do we have any additions, changes, corrections? If not, do we have a motion to accept?
So moved.
All right, we have a motion, and all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Thank you. Director, do we have any correspondence?
Yes, we had 3 items that were turned in. Did you give them the correspondence? Chair Boley volunteered to read our correspondence, so.
Do they affect tonight's agenda items?
No.
Items that don't affect the agenda, only items that affect the agenda should be read.
Okay.
Is my understanding.
Do you want me to go over what they were?
I
Really
think if
quick or
you
no?
just go ahead and forward them to the commissioners
Got it.
for their file to read. If it was affecting tonight's agenda item, then we would want to hear about it. City manager's comments?
He won't be attending today.
Okay, he has agreed he will be here quarterly as he recommended to do, and he'll be here at next month's meeting to attend, he told me. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. I skipped down one. Thank you, Alan. At this time has been set aside for members of the public to address the Parks Commission on agenda items and items of general interest within the subject matter and jurisdiction of our commission. Although the commission values your input, we are not able, pursuant to the Brown Act, to make comments at the time that you're speaking. It generally cannot take any action or on items that are not listed on our agenda. You have 3 minutes, and we would like to ask the speaker to come up to the chair over here and make sure your microphone is on. Give your name and where you're from for public comment.
Hi, my name is Kelly Meenan. And I never pass up an opportunity to speak. So, mostly when it comes to the dogs. I first of all want to just thank you guys for listening to me and hearing my cries of help for the dog park. I appreciate being heard. I just wanted to bring something up because I know we're going to be speaking of the dog park, and I'm excited. But with the dog park that does exist over there, we desperately need faucets to help keep it clean and stuff. And so lo and behold, this week I went down to University Dog Park, and they have a solution that I think would be very suiting for us. They have these faucets that you push down, and they work for 5 seconds, and then they stop. Right? Because we have a water problem with faucets. That's why we got them taken out of our dog park. It's because we had a water over usage. People were saying that homeless people were coming and showering there. If you guys have that big a problem with it, then we would like to ask for the faucets that you just push down, and it lasts 5 seconds, and then we can get our faucets. Let me think what else I would like to speak on. New ground covering. Until it's done, I'm going to keep preaching about it. We desperately need new ground covering, new shading, awnings for the people. Definitely faucets. We need faucets. And water wells, I keep asking for this, but last time that you guys put in a water well, I thought it was kind of a joke or slap in the face because you put it outside of the dog park and not even in the dog park. Anybody that has dogs knows that when you're in the dog park and they're running around, you're not going to put them back on a leash and take them outside of the dog park to get their thirst on. And so it was kind of a not smartly executed placement of that water fountain. So we ask you, I have to be very clear on this, inside the dog park, we would like water wells. And that's it for today. I'm really just eager to listen to what you guys have. Oh, also on the sub-dog park committee, I heard that last time you guys did the sub-dog park dog committee, somebody from the office just went over there and would ask the dog owners questions. That's called a survey. That's not called a dog park subcommittee. We still want a dog park subcommittee of people that actually go there every single day and use this dog park for we can give you guys our feedback of this. Because being shut down for 7 weeks is not just killing me, it's killing our dogs. It's brutal. And we're still having to wait, Thank you.
Hi, my name is Tom Dahl. I'm from Palm Springs. I have some handouts. I'm going to talk about the swim center. Pass those down. I'm an avid swimmer. I've been here for 5 years. I was a visitor for 5 years. We have this amazing asset of the swim center. In a city of 2,000 pools, it's really the only lap swimming facility, and there are very few even private lap pools around. It's an addition to the outdoor lifestyle that Palm Springs is known for: hiking, biking, golf, tennis, and swimming. It's a Hugh Captor designed facility. It's part of the larger Sunrise Park complex, including a skate park, pavilion, and leisure center with connection to the Mizell Center, Boys and Girls Club, library, sports fields, and high school. I don't have to tell the commissioners that, but I just want to put that on the record. The challenge that the pool has is that it's very expensive to maintain. I saw that the budget was over $500,000, which is a lot of money. It takes a lot to heat, cool, staff, and maintain a facility like that. It's mostly, I would assume, taxpayer funded with modest income from entrance fees and swim meets. I don't believe there are any grants or federal or state money that goes to the swim center, although there may be. So there's two issues on my radar that have a direct impact on the revenue for the swim center: community visibility, number one, and visitor passes, number two. Community visibility. It's a very difficult to find facility, and it's rarely promoted. As a result, it is unknown by the large percentage of residents. I can't tell you how many times I tell people about the swim center and they didn't know it existed, they had never heard of it, and they had no idea where it was. On Ramon Road, there's a large visibility of the swim center behind a wall. So for most people, it's just a giant wall. There is a sign on there that might seem big, but it's a tiny sign in relation to the size of the wall and the 60-mile-an-hour traffic that goes by it all day long. It's a great opportunity for a mural or a larger sign program that would be on the Ramon side. And if you happen to see that sign and you think, oh, great, I'm going to park right next to that and go in, that's the Mizell Center, that's not the pool. So there's also a problem with figuring out how to get there. So then you go to Barristo Road. I hear it's off Barristo Road. So I go down, I see some sports fields, I stop at a stop sign, there's a road, but there's no signs or anything that tells me there's anything down there. So maybe then I figure out, okay, I guess I'm going to go down that road, and I get to the entrance of the pool, and there is not a single sign anywhere telling you it's a pool. Now, there is a monument sign for the skate park and the swim center, sand-colored, I'll go quick, sorry. But there's shrubs now covering up the word swim, so you really have no idea it's there. So,
Okay, I'm sorry, but by rules, I'm only allowed to give you 3 minutes.
okay, thank you.
Good afternoon. Takes me a second to get up here, so don't take it off my minutes. My name is Martin Danielson. I represent the Sunrise Park Board and Communications. I've also been on the Village Fest Board as its chair some years ago. It's nice to see you today. And it's kind of interesting because I'm going to continue what Tom started. We have talked about how we can help the city and Sunrise Park create a stronger branding and excitement that will fit in with what's happening with Palm Springs. First of all, let me congratulate you for what you have done in the park recently. It's a big, big change. We have some ideas, and first and foremost, Sunrise Park will have a tour for Modernism Week for the first time in 3 years, and we're delighted about that. But we have some opportunities here, I think that's outstanding. We have met with the Historical Society. Rich Weideman, who you may know, was head of the Western area national parks, including San Francisco parks, and then served as assistant director to the United States Park System in Washington, D.C. He's now part of the Historic Society. We're looking at the pool and saying, gee, Captor built this wonderful pool in this wonderful park. How can we get together and talk about how we can build the structure of the park? I'm a New Yorker, so Central Park was central to my love of New York City. I think we've got some real opportunities here because we've just been approached by the Art Commission of the City of Palm Springs and said they would like to bring art into the park. All of these things, I think, add to something that we could look at together to make Sunrise Park a truly outstanding park, because parks are such a vital part of our neighborhoods and our society. So what we're trying to do is to get some people together to talk about some ideas that we have on building in the concept of us working together to build and bring in arts, special activities, special events, and things that will build Sunrise Park, but also let us go into perhaps some of the other parks with ideas that we are able to create. And so all I'm saying is that we at Sunrise Park are very interested in talking to you about the opportunities that we have. And we hope that on a future meeting, we may put that into some sort of a formal discussion. And that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other members for public comment? If not, we will move that portion of the agenda closed. And then we'll move on to staff updates.
So the department will be closed Thursday and Friday for the Thanksgiving holiday. The tree lighting ceremony will be coming up on Friday, December 6th. Festival of Lights will be Saturday, December 7th. Breakfast with Santa will be Saturday, December 21st. We have a new account clerk in our department. His name is Alex. He comes from the city of Rancho Cucamonga, and he's amazing. So he'll be a great addition to our team. And James O'Jesse will be having their holiday toy giveaway for James O'Jesse members on December 20th.
Thank you.
Is it possible, Cynthia, if you could send out an email after the holiday, just with all those dates? Thank you.
They are on the city website calendar also. Okay, our first thing on our agenda today, agenda topic is the Gerald Clark Road Sign Project. Sustainability has been working with that with our Arts Commission, and Cynthia, you have someone here to give us a handout that we got, an update?
Oh, I don't see anybody.
No, I didn't either.
Let me email Jay and see if he's going to be able to make it.
Shall we skip over and
Yes.
come back? Would anyone have a problem with me moving number 4, since Alex is here, up to right now? And let's bring number 4, Bright Guard Sun Protection Program, up to the agenda. We have Alex Beck here from the program to explain it to us, and you also received handouts in your emails.
And I have a few more handouts as well. Would you like me to sit down?
Sit down so that you can go into the speaker, because we are being videoed for television so that they can hear you.
Fantastic. Okay, so I have a few case studies that if you could pass around. This is from an initiative we did in Massachusetts, and I also have a few business cards if anyone would like to get in touch. So my name is Alex Beck. I co-founded this company called Bright Guard. We are the first manufacturer of the automatic sunscreen dispenser. We now have over 5,000 in market, and we are now international. We're in all 50 states, including Canada as well as New Zealand. We started off, our original business model was selling direct to parks and recreation agencies such as aquatic centers, and they'd put sunscreen dispensers in their local pools or outdoor recreational facilities to give the public free access to sunscreen, which is obviously cancer preventative. However, over the years, we kind of shifted models, and we've pivoted to a way to get sunscreen dispensers in public locations completely free to the city. So what we do is we partner with local hospitals or healthcare providers in regions such as New York City, Boston, Florida. We're doing this last year we did about 7 of these programs. This year we have about 10 lined up. And luckily for us, UC Riverside as well as Desert Memorial has expressed some interest in completely subsidizing sunscreen dispensers in local parks in the Palm Springs region. So I brought this up to Cynthia's attention, and she wanted me to address you guys, and thank you again for allowing me to speak on this subject. And I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have. I'm sure you're curious to know about the sunscreen. It's all natural, water resistant, 20% zinc oxide, hypoallergenic with no nut formula in it as well, so no almonds, so it's also school friendly as well. And I could open the conversation to anyone who has any questions.
I have one. What about the mess? Is there a mess? Will it drip? Is it going to create
Great question.
a mess?
And something I forgot to mention, but I'll piggyback on that. So just so everyone knows, and I have a little key that'll unlock this thing. So inside of this dispenser is a 1,000 milliliter or 1 liter bag of sunscreen. This is good for 1,000 applications. So each dispersal is 1 milliliter of sunscreen. So just a little quarter size of sunscreen on your palm. There is an application, because we have these in school districts across the country. There is an application, so after your first dispersal, it waits 1.5 seconds for the second one, so kids can't play with it. So the mess is mostly captured by this drip tray, but also what I think is the most important aspect to our sun protection program, as we call it, is we provide supplemental maintenance. So we have a maintenance crew come once a week, if not more, depending on the city, depending on the requirements, to come and service this dispenser. That means clean it, that means repair it if anything's done, that means remove the faceplate. The only thing we ask of the Parks Department, so again, completely free to the city, the only thing we ask is that the Parks Department is the first line of defense. I just got a quote from the city of Roseville, it's Scott Marchetti, saying that it takes less than 2 minutes for his staff per dispenser when it comes to the maintenance of this. But we also, again, supply supplemental maintenance on a weekly basis, and we can, in New York City, we did on a daily basis in certain parks.
So you've already gotten people in the community, the Desert Regional or what have you, to fund all these, so it's already good to
No,
go?
it's not that far along yet. There's just expressed interest. So we got approval from the CEO. Now we'll move to the head of marketing to kind of flush this out. I know they're going to do some form of integration on their UC Riverside campus and then the Riverside area as well. They're just partnered with Desert Memorial, and they thought, obviously, as Mr. Bowley said, you need sunscreen in Palm Springs. It's one of the first
Right.
questions you're asked.
And then I also work for the school district, and so I'm hearing you say a lot about having them on school campuses. And so what would be the progression from the city of Palm Springs Parks and Recs, parks areas to the school district?
That's a great question. So actually, in the case study I provided, this is Emerson Hospital, and that's a great question. And unfortunately, I only printed out, I believe, 7 of the 15 pages, but one of those where we work with Impact Melanoma, which is a national skin cancer foundation based in Boston, and Emerson's in the Massachusetts region. And they actually have a specialized school educational program. So what Emerson's doing right now, they worked with 8 communities, so they span like a 15-mile radius in Massachusetts. There's a huge initiative out there, and they're using Impact Melanoma's educational curriculum to enter the school districts as well. And the school districts, and I brought a wall mount, and I'll show you this as well. So this is our pole mount dispenser. This is our wall mount. Most schools just use this yellow dispenser, and then they put a sun safety message in the insert card, so kids, have less to play around with. But we also provide, for example, Nevada Cancer Coalition sponsored 7 of 16 school districts in the state of Nevada, and they integrated these with sun safety messages. So that's a natural progression to answer your question. Still, we'd like to make it work in the city first and then naturally approach that. And then again, some places have restrictions. The state of California does allow kids to bring sunscreen to schools, so this is applicable.
Thank you.
I have a question and then a comment based on what I think the answer is going to be. So your business model is to have this advertising on these stand-up.
Correct.
Right, okay. So this is more, not for that, you, but the commission is that, so this is basically placing advertising in the parks. It amounts to really commercializing our public spaces. It raises a lot of questions about, for example, we just talked about this at the dog park subcommittee about dog bags being sponsored by a local pet store. And so, while this may be a great idea, there's a larger policy question about whether we're going to introduce advertising and allowing people to make money within the parks. We have all sorts of rules where we talked about, and many times about people that are personal trainers that use the parks and can't make money. And so there's a larger policy question here than just providing sunscreen.
And that's a good question, or a good comment. And just to answer your question, so these were actually the billboards that we deployed in New York City. So we deployed 170 dispenser in every one of their aquatic centers and then along all of their public beaches. Their regulations, and again, New York City Parks and Rec Department thought that the offering of free sunscreen overrid the profitability here of the Northwell Cancer Institute, obviously, so they found that it was more beneficial to provide sunscreen than it was to not. And this was their requirements, so what we like to do is we work with the city because I've addressed those policies before in the past, and we could change the logo placement. We also, for example, in the city of Los Angeles as well as Santa Monica, we include the city symbol as well. So for example, in Tampa, it goes generously donated by Advent Health and the city of Tampa. So that the city does receive acknowledgement for their participation. They do receive a halo effect, and they also bring free sunscreen to aquatic centers, to public parks. So they do receive their due. Also, again, this is completely malleable. We like to have the logo here just because it's at eye level and it's attention worthy, but it has to be reinforced, and these are our requirements, by some sun safety tips. And this insert card, this is just an example of the Coppertone, is used as a sun safety message as well as an acknowledgement area. So we do, just to acknowledge your point, we're very sensitive about advertising in parks, and we work with you guys to make sure that everything's approved. We're not gratuitous about it. It's just our only way to not charge you guys to provide sunscreen and to give it away for free to the public.
Commissioner Goodman?
Yeah, I'm just kind of curious of your cost. And so can you give us an idea of what the cost is for that? And then what is the fee for the maintenance on a regular basis?
So there's no cost whatsoever to the city, so we cover the cost of maintenance as well. If you were to purchase this outright, let's say, and we're not using the sun protection program, and Cynthia came to me and said, I want 10 of my aquatic centers, this sunscreen dispenser is $70. The natural sunscreen that we use, it comes in a gallon, is $200. This pole is $100, so right there you're looking at about $350 starter package. That does not include the display. The display is about roughly $275, $300. So you'd be looking at about $650 to get one of these units in your park, and then we wouldn't provide maintenance. That's if you were to buy it outright. Again, the difference is this sun protection program, there's not a penny charged.
No, I mean like if I was the sponsor.
Mm-hmm. Oh, if you were
And
the
I wanted to
sponsor.
place 150 of them
Sure,
in our parks.
sure.
What's it's $700 per stand?
No, so the way we break it down, so we cover all of our costs, which there's quite a lot. We dedicate a project manager to these, which also communicate with the cities. Most of our costs is wrapped up in maintenance. For example, New York City alone, and we use, just so you guys know, we use janitorial service companies, so they're approved. They all go through background checks, but they're expensive. New York City, our maintenance alone, our cost was around $10,000 a month. Here, it's going to be dramatically less expensive. I would imagine somewhere between $750 a month to service 10 to $1,200 a month, our cost. We have program manager built out. It's unlimited sunscreen and it's unlimited hardware. So this thing never runs out, and if anything were to be damaged, we replace in 24 hours. That's a guarantee. We see very, very little vandalism issues. It's remarkable, actually. So there's a cost associated with that as well. But again, we just look at our cost, and then we just put on a 50% margin to it, just typical.
And what would it be per stand if I was your sponsor?
If you were our sponsor for this initiative, I do have the cost built out, and it's, let me just think, per stand.
I know there are various stands. There's some with umbrellas, some that are wall units, some that are standalone.
Correct, yeah.
So they probably
but-
vary.
Yeah, they vary, and it varies, and I'm just trying to do a breakdown per stand. So if it was, and there's also a time period here too. So the way we broke it down, and like to talk this through with you guys, is 2 4-month increments, or, obviously sun is shining here year round, so that's a possibility as well. I don't know where they're at. I don't know where you guys are either, but for a 4-month duration, I would say the cost to the sponsor would probably be around $475 to $1,000 a unit.
And what account do you have in Riverside County?
As of right now, I don't know off the top of my head. I'm sure we have a few, but UC Riverside would be our first big one. They're looking to, I think, do simultaneous deployments. I don't want to speak for them, but I know for sure they're moving forward with their campus initiative, and they're opting into our full service program as well. So we'll be maintaining those units, and then they're very interested in moving forward here.
Thank you.
In In the brochure, I saw removal of the unit at the end of the campaign. Is there a time limit that this runs, or?
Yes, and I somewhat addressed it with your question. But so what I presented to them is a 4-month period from January till April, because I know that's the snowbird season here. But there's also another one that I presented from basically May until September. So we run a lot of our programs from Memorial Day to Labor Day. That's traditional summer elsewhere. Obviously, Palm Springs is not a traditional summer. So I also combine those. So it's essentially a 9-month program that they might be willing to fund. So you're just missing a few months. And then I offered a year-round option if you guys would be interested. A lot of times parks departments, I just want to put this on the record, every single department we've worked with, every single city we've worked with, every single sponsor we've worked with thus far is going to extend the program in 2020, if not expand it. I think every single one of them is expanding it. So we've had a very successful track record to date. That being said, it's really up to you guys. A lot of departments like to do a trial run where they put it up in their parks for 4 months, see how they like it, to get the hang of it. And then if they like it, they extend it and expand it. And that's what everyone's done thus far. So it's really up to you guys. I take what you give me and I go back to our potential client. I think what would work best here is ultimately a year-round program, so people could have access to it year-round. I think they're interested in that, but if you guys wanted to start with 4 months and we just do some observation, and then they have the ability to continue it, that would work as well.
Commissioner Cohan, you had a question.
2 comments, really, more than a question. One is that, similar to what Commissioner Armstrong mentioned, just for our commission, one, I think we ought to look at this as an issue of having things to be funded in parks and how it happens. And I think there's a difference of calling this for-profit versus if there's a nonprofit, if it's a hospital or a health system that is doing something for the public benefit. That's different than if Coca-Cola is sponsoring it or the maker of baseball bats is sponsoring the softball team or the sporting goods store. So I think we need to keep that in perspective as well, but we ought to have a more robust discussion around that, which gets us back to one of our priority items that we had talked about doing as a commission, which was looking at how we can fund things through the city's foundation, which just happened this past week. We saw Dr. Reddy again, and he did also say, yes, there is a foundation that we can take in donations for. So there's probably a way of doing this, and we probably ought to do it right so that if people ask us, well, you did it for Bright Guard, why can't you do it for whatever? We can look at a city policy for that. The second comment I just wanted to make was that we have a crying need for this year-round, unlike most places.
Correct.
And probably the time that is most needed is in our real meteorological summer, when it is 110 plus degrees here every day, and there are people who are using our parks every day.
Yep.
And we have very high incidence of melanoma and other skin cancers here. So it probably is something, and the people who are living here and who are using the parks are the residents who are paying the taxes and want to see these kinds of things that the city is behind them. So I'd just like to voice that, one, I think it's a great initiative. I think that we do have to think about some larger policy issues, but I thank you for bringing it to our city. And I personally would like to work with this, and that I would like to see it prioritized for our city residents as much as for the visitors and seasonal visitors.
Fantastic, thank you.
Director Alvarez, you said the other day there was some locations you had in mind that would work in the, would you like to share that with the rest of the commissioners, what thoughts you had?
Dieter did have a comment first, though.
Commissioner Crawford, go ahead.
So my question is, are you able to use stronger SPF? Because I know with children, it's usually 50 to 100, and I only seen 30 on all of the pictures, so that's one of the things that really jumped out to me, if you can use the higher.
That's a great question, and actually, Alan, is this thing on? Prep me on that. Just for your knowledge, and this is how I start when anyone asks me that question, we determined to use SPF 30 Dermatologists recommend anything above SPF 15. Just so you're aware, the CDC is starting to eliminate SPF 100s because they don't exist. And the difference between an SPF 30 and a 50 is 1%. So it's negligible. And they're also looking into claims that SPF 50 is a marketing play. So typically you see SPF 50s for double the price when you're only getting 1% more protection. So having that knowledge, we just decided to run with SPF 30. To answer your question, yeah.
Commissioner Lamarck?
I'm kind of curious. You made the statement you don't have a problem with vandalism. I could see that as so bright and yellow.
Oh, I know.
I could see there would be vandalism. So I'm
Correct.
curious if you're going to place them in an area where they're going to be monitored, or are they going to be just randomly placed around where nobody's there to see that people are messing with them?
Great question. So just so you guys are aware, I'll give you a little anecdote. In New York City, we had 221 dispensers, and this was in Coney Island. This was in Rockaway Beach. This was in every one of their aquatic centers. And we had dispensers at Jones Beach. We had dispensers at Robert Moses. And for 2 years now, this is our third year, but for 2 years, we've had 9 dispensers go down due to vandalism. So this last year, out of 221, we had 4 dispensers that we had to just take the cover off and put it back and put a new one on. We do have a vandalism policy that's consistent with most parks departments. The first incidents of vandalism we clean up within 24 hours. The second one, we actually remove the dispenser from market and try to find a new home from it. So to address your first question, what we like to do is work with parks departments, and we like to place these dispensers with staff present. Very rarely do we put dispensers out in parks that are unmanned. So there is that level of supervision that I think keeps people away from vandalism. So we start there, and then we have that backup policy just in case. We had 50 dispensers in Santa Monica, and we had 3 giant towers, which are illustrated in the Bright Guard document. They're a 7-foot tower. And we had 2 instances of graffiti this last summer, but it was able to be washed up in 24 hours, and that was it. And I think it's mostly due to our placement. And then secondly, I think people appreciate it. I'm not exactly sure, but that would be my guess because we've seen such a low instance. And I think another thing to note, we completely indemnify your organization as well as the city. We also have an insurance policy up to $2 million, so every incidence is $1 million, aggregate is $2 million. So we hold harmless all parties involved.
All commissioners have asked except one. Is it all right to start over again? Commissioner Goodman.
Thank you. Okay, so let's just say this is great. We'll put it by every tennis court, pickleball court, swim centers in Duluth, around the soccer, where we really have a population. So tell me about the service contract or the service agreement. So this is a new territory for you, and you commented that you come in and actually do the service.
Correct.
How would you have boots on the ground? And what does that look like?
That's a great question. So we haven't investigated who we'd work with out here as of yet, because this is kind of new, but it's moving quickly. It depends. So in Santa Monica, we actually use my brother in Santa Monica, but typically we use, if we can, we use close friends and family, and that was only in Southern California because we have access to it. But in New York, in Florida, we use janitorial maintenance companies. So that would be our first place we'd look here. There's quite a few that service the office buildings in this region, and we utilize their staff to work with our dispensers. I come out, I give them a little training. We go over the dispensers, and then once they're approved, and if you guys need to approve them, we'll go through that process as well. We connect with Cynthia, or the Parks Department, to connect schedules. My crew works with Cynthia to find a time where they could go consistently to every dispenser, so her staff knows when to expect our staff. Also, our staff or myself or one of my sales reps can come and give a demonstration to the city as well. But we typically work with janitorial maintenance companies, and we just connect the dots.
if there, Commissioner Armstrong?
I have two questions. Can you tell me, any of the jurisdictions that you work with, do you provide a percentage of your profits back to them?
We don't, and we have not yet. I'm trying to think of a case where we offered that. That has been talked about, but we haven't done it to date yet. It's a possibility. I just don't know. Typically, that happens on. We're more likely to get that to happen year 2, year 3 after the first trial period if we feel that's necessary, but we have not to date. No.
I guess my other is a comment for the director. I mean, in terms of the locations, frankly, I don't think people playing tennis and pickleball need free sunscreen. Our parks are terribly inequitable, but where they're distributed. And so if we do go forward with this, I would really like to know locations that are serving different populations as well, not just people that are playing pickleball or tennis. We have our parks are not evenly distributed around the city. So I would be looking for these to be some fairness.
So we have some parks that are larger than others. So my recommendation, if this was a direction that we decided to go into, would be to place 2 at Sunrise Park, 1 at the pool, 2 at Demuth, because we have so much activity when it comes to baseball and soccer, and just people using the park in general. 2 at Ruth Hardy, 1 at Victoria, possibly 1 at Baristo, 1 at James O'Jesse. How many is that? 8. And we could definitely place 1 at the dog park in downtown. So there would be more than enough to go to all of our park locations. It's just the bigger parks that I would be worried about placing more than 1 so that we wouldn't have to walk clear across the park to get some sunscreen, since we have so much activity in our larger ones.
And Commissioner Armstrong, that was a great question. We had to address that same question in Tampa as well as New York City to serve the population that sunscreen is expensive. It often is $12 plus. So some families can't afford to do that. So that was stressed in New York City, hence why we did all the public pools to address that void and offer free sunscreen. So definitely a consideration.
Any other questions or comments from the commission? May I ask what direction you would like us? Do you want us to have a motion to continue on studying, or what do you recommend?
Yes,
Director?
I would say let's continue this so we can find out some more information in regards to how the city wants to deal with sponsorships and items being named. And then when we're ready to come back, when we feel we have enough information, we can definitely make a decision, because it sounds like you still don't have a full.
I don't have a full commitment, but the first that they're looking for is shortly after the holidays, so sometime in January is that first proposed, and I'll probably get a conversation before the holiday break as well with them, so I'll know a little bit more. And UC Riverside is spearheading, their cancer center is spearheading this really. So, and I'll know rapidly, probably before the holidays.
Okay.
I would think we would need to have approval from our city manager as to the city does accept and would allow us to do this. Commissioner Crawford, do you have something?
Yeah, you say UCR and Desert Memorial. Do you mean Desert Healthcare District or Desert Regional Medical Center?
I'm sorry,
I'm not sure.
I believe it's Desert Regional. So sorry, I made that mistake here.
Oh, it used to be.
Yeah, it used to be.
It used to be Desert Memorial. Maybe that's where I got confused too. Yeah.
But the healthcare foundation is a very nice idea.
And
That's a very nice idea.
the foundation. And I know UCR is a not-for-profit, it's a nonprofit, 501c3. And it's weird, but a lot of we've worked with UCLA Cancer Center and UCLA Health as well as UC Davis. So the UC programs have opted into this program. All not-for-profits.
Commissioner Cohen.
Just a question, is there any reason why you wouldn't approach the other larger medical facilities like Eisenhower Health or others?
We'd like to. It was just that UCR kind of sprung this on me and initiated it. But yes.
I think I would like to move forward with this and study it and look at it a little bit more and get some more information to bring back at our next commission.
Can that include cost?
Include costs? Well, there's no cost to us.
I'm still curious about the cost model.
Sure.
Okay, yeah.
Sure.
I could provide cost. They might be able to do it right now.
I mean, as soon as a sponsor or funder pulls out, I think cost is an important topic.
I think we would like to hear as soon as you get something from
UCR.
a commitment, you know, what we can do to move forward. But at this time, we would like to make sure that we don't overstep the boundaries of our commission. Okay?
Great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks to all. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Chair
Been there,
Boley.
done that. And here's a example of the contract that we struck with the city of Roseville, if anyone's interested. So I could leave this with Cynthia.
That was something, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you all again.
Thank you, Al.
Director Verada emailed back and said that nobody is going to be able to make it in time. They got stuck at the office.
So shall we table that to the next one?
Yes.
All right. So then the Gerald Clark Road Sign Project will be moved to our next agenda. I would like to ask Stacy Schaefer, our Director of Maintenance, is that you'll tell us what it is, to join us at the table as we discuss the dog park issues that were brought up in our last comment. As some people know, Stacy handles our maintenance issues, where Cynthia handles our program issues in our park. So we have the two different people here that we work with, and we'd like to welcome you, Stacy. Thank you so much for coming today. Director Alvarez, you have, or does she have the issues that we had brought up that we wanted to address?
I want to say she's slowly been addressing a majority of those issues. She's had several conversations with Kelly. I want to say we can probably pull them from the minutes.
I had most of them, and if you'd like to start, I know, while you pull up, some of them were, why this time of year? When is our maintenance done? You know, why is this time of year used for scalping and reseeding?
Mother Nature.
Definitely. It is the time that we have to do it out here, is October is when that happens.
They were shut in November, not October.
Was there a reason why the question was asked, why 7 weeks when the others do shorter?
Because we had drainage issues that we had to take care of. As we all talked a few months ago, there was several areas of runoff and several areas that were sunken. So we worked with our contractor to create a whole new drainage system. And part of that meant removing big sections, installing different layers of rock, drain systems, and then new sod over top of that, as well as the overseeding that would take place after. And then, of course, we also snuck in the tree trimming and the hedge trimming at the same time.
Do any of the commissioners have other questions, or do you want to address some of the questions that you have discussed with
Which topic are we on?
the dog park?
2 or 3?
Two.
I can, one of the requests I'd had was just to bring a list of the maintenance items that we've been doing during this shutdown. The shade membrane was replaced in the small dog park. Obviously, we've been doing a lot of gravel removal, swapping it out for smaller as requested. One of the 2 drinking fountains was installed. The reason we installed the one on the exterior first was because that was leaking. It was a maintenance issue. There is a second one that will be installed by the time we reopen inside. Obviously, we did the drainage, 15 tons of 3/8 gravel, tree trimming, hedge trimming. We also took this opportunity for weed abatement, pest control applications, thorough and lengthy irrigation repairs, and then, of course, replacement of the weed barrier and overseeding.
Do I have any questions from the commissioners for Stacy. Commissioner Lamort.
I guess I'll be the troublemaker. Why October? Why not get a different seed that will germinate in a different time of year? And why would you do the dog park here at the same time you do Demuth? So there's no place for people to go.
The biggest issue we have with any overseeding is heat. It's heat and humidity, moisture, germination. We actually use a mix right now of the type of seed. We've even tried hydro seed. We've done several different trials with seed from springtime to blue mixes to this time of year. Basically, it's really dictated by the temperature. The hotter it is, the less likely we are to germinate. The cooler months, obviously, are the better months, and then add in the moisture, and that's where we are. That's why citywide, it's not just the dog parks, it's every park, every golf course, everybody's yard. Unfortunately, sometimes even in October, we're still really warm.
Well, I
it's been
noticed
real
that
hard.
the Tockwitz Golf Course was done in the beginning of October, and it was green before they even touched Demuth. And so it was just a timing issue, because there's no place for people to go. And if they're crammed into the other dog parks, of course, now you're going to get people that are not going to use the dog parks, they're going to use the baseball field, so they're going to go to the golf course. I definitely hear what the problem is. It's all at once, but I'm wondering that we can't somehow stagger it.
And again, a few years ago, prior to me being here, I believe there was a request at that time to stop overseeding the dog park, which led to...
And it ran, just turned into
It
dirt.
it was very
mud.
bad. It was mud, yeah.
Yeah.
Similarly, we did, 4 years ago, we altered the overseeding schedule at Demuth in relation to some of these same concerns that was actually was related to ball field play. And we lost most of those and had to redo them. And the ball fields, the soccer fields, it was very expensive and made the players pretty unhappy. And that was a result of going too far forward and too far back.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Goodman, you had a question?
Yeah, I mean, since this is a topic on the agenda, the subcommittee, Dog Park Subcommittee did meet and we had a chat. And so I'd like to maybe at some point tonight open up for a larger discussion. I did go and have an opportunity to head over to Rancho Mirage to their dog park, and I met with their M&O folks. They shut down totally, 100%. Their timeline is 4 weeks. They struggle with the same things that our dog park struggles with. I don't quite know why ours is closed for longer. Rancho Mirage said that they do not separate irrigation and drainage. They just close it down because they need to do full maintenance on everything. It's their one opportunity where there's no foot traffic. Neighbors and community members who use the dog park complain, so they struggle with the same conversations from the community. They feel pretty committed to that's what's working for them now. And I will say it is an absolutely outstanding dog park. One, it has more, I believe, it's a larger footprint than ours. The other thing I can say is that it probably has 70% DG and cement, walkway, and their grass is decorative. It is not the mass or the largest part of the dog park. 4 years ago, when the subcommittee was established, which it really was ad hoc, it was not a standing subcommittee, and it consisted of 2 Parks and Recs commissioners, city council members, and city staff. There was a suggestion that this dog park would have separate irrigations so that the large dog park would be divided in 2 and portions of it. I was told many years later that there wasn't enough money to actually have 2 separate irrigations, which is why we have the 1 full irrigation. And then I do see we have some drawings for some ideas. So I just wanted to share that and there's more information from the subcommittee, but I just wanted to reinforce some of your demands and let everyone understand. I don't know if it takes 7 weeks. Is that the estimated time for closing?
Again, we had a significant drainage issue, which
Oh, so you had-
involved a lot of trenching. It wasn't just irrigation.
Yeah.
We had to dig out areas and install basically all new undergrowth, leach fields,
Okay.
drainage system over top of that.
So that was unique.
Then sod on top of that.
Right. And Rancho Mirage had a lot of drainage problems as well and flooding. And so they created ditches in areas to capture it and put large rocks, large enough that large dogs actually wouldn't find it interesting to go over there. So they did the same thing, but then they tried to create this solution with absorbing some of that and putting things down so that dogs and their owners wouldn't walk on it and get messed up. So just wanted to share that.
How often is the cleaning crew coming through there now? Was one of the questions.
3 days a week.
3 days a week. And the other one, that would you address this? It was mentioned, why don't you go to AstroTurf? Address it, please.
Stacy, may I
Go
just
ahead,
kind of,
please.
I can't address today, but I will address what was, and then Commissioner Armstrong, who's also on the subcommittee, has some comments. But I'll address a few years ago the ad hoc committee that went through the first renovation of the dog park. And it's very expensive. AstroTurf or artificial grass is very expensive. And it was the city's first choice. The city really wanted to suggest, they did suggest it, they wanted it to be a part of it, and the community came in like just throes of people saying, we want grass, we want grass. And the city said, the grass won't last, it can't last. Grass is really very fragile when you have the footprint that our dog park has. And we could open a second dog park, and I still believe, and I'm a dog owner, and I frequent dog parks, and I have, this one is a little too crowded, and it's unpredictable, so I don't actually bring my dog to that dog park. And so the AstroTurf is a really great solution. It's not necessarily environmental and green footprint for everything that naturalists like to do. In the summer, it can be cooled. It does have an excessive amount of heat, though in midday in the summer here, people aren't using the dog park. It's early morning or later in the evening. So it was brought to the table, and actually the community did not want it. That was my memory. Stacy, if you have anything that you can add to that.
That was my memory as well. I know one of the concerns was it wasn't really tried and true. I know since then we've had Cerritos Field with great success there. And I think as technology's improved over time, there are now AstroTurf that are specifically made for dogs. I don't have a breadth of knowledge on them. I'm aware of them, and I know there are some areas that are, I don't know if it's our climate where those have been tried out, but I know there's new technology and there's folks trying more and more often.
Your comment that you're doing major rehab on the park this year and doing foundational work and putting weed cloth down, does that mean that next year probably it won't take that much rehab?
Absolutely. Yeah, next
So-
year we would go back to normal schedule.
So we can try to pledge to the dog folks that next year it will only be 4 weeks?
Yeah, well, I don't know if it was 4 weeks.
Well, instead of 7,
6, it's usually 6.
it's usually 6.
We closed 1 week early.
Got it. And the other thing, I've always had because I've been to friends' house who have artificial turf. I've always found it, because I take my shoes off to see how hot it is, I've always found it too hot for my dogs. Now, I heard you say they have a new kind now that maybe will accommodate dogs. I'm hoping that would be cooler, but I personally would not use the plastic only because plastic gets too hot. Now, you're right, it's 7 o'clock in the morning, perhaps not, but my dog wants to go out at noon. You know, I'm like an Englishman, I'm out there at noon. That's all.
Thank you, Stacy. Commissioner Armstrong.
First I want to thank Kelly for all her work in bringing this issue. You all saw the dog park community was a tiny portion of the dog park community Kelly could probably fill this meeting up every month with triple than that. So this is a concern. The old master plan numbers that a previous speaker gave out showed 50% of the people in the city care about the dog park and think it's important, and that is a very old study, and the popularity of the dog park has only increased since then. But, you know, to step back, I think this is all right under our agenda item to look at the bigger picture. I talked to Kelly before this meeting, and all the city is doing is gets in a cycle. People get really upset. We do some fixes, maybe more than a Band-Aid, maybe a Band-Aid. 3 years later, everyone comes back. We have to get out of this cycle. One of the things that Ellen and I talked about, and was talked about in previous meetings, is establishing a subcommittee of actually people that use the dog park who can be on it to make sure that Stacy's department and the Parks Department actually listen to the people and fix things before they get to the point that they're at today. That's the only way we're going to get out of this cycle, that people are going to come here, go to the council. They have to have engagement with the dog park community. And we need to move forward as soon as possible, maybe today, to set up the parameters of getting the subcommittee in place. Otherwise, we're just going to go back 2 years from now and have the same thing happen. You know, the overseeding is more complicated than staff is, I think, talking about. In years past, the commission would actually have meetings at the park, talk to the dog park community, do you want it seeded or not? There was a period of 3 years where it was not seeded, and then there was an experiment of every other year reseeding, overseeding. And as I recall from that, it turned out to be no difference between annual seeding and every other year overseeding. Also, we were promised by the city years ago that when the dog park was done, that there would be an established that, especially on the larger side, that there would be a segregation so that there would be overseeding during 2 different periods. Now, I've learned recently, unbeknownst to me, that irrigation was never put in properly to do that. But that was the deal that the city made at the time when one of the last eruptions was that we were going to change the irrigation so that we could segregate one part, overseed, keep the other part open, at least on the larger. This discussion on the smaller was to remove the turf at the south part enough that it could be kept open. None of that has happened. And I think last year that was raised again, and to staff, and nothing happened with that either. On the 7-week versus 6-week, it's always been closed at least 6 weeks, regardless of what's been happening in the park over the last many, many years. If we have the old signs, we can kind of go look and correct that and see that. I will say a byproduct of this 3-day-a-week has meant that the staff is now closing the park on Wednesdays from noon to 3. So, and it's not really being cleaned from 3 hours. And so we have 9 hours during the week now of prime time that people are not able to use the park. I know that people ask for that, but you know, I was there one day and they closed the park. I had my 2 little dogs who missed the park so much. One of my dogs, Johnny, has been going there 10 years. They closed it and they walked away, and then they came back an hour later because they just wanted to close it. That's the people we have cleaning the park right now. Just quickly on turf, I know it's a big discussion. There is, I think, a sustainability commission resolution, I think maybe when you were on it, that against turf in our city parks, and the city has put turf in one of the ball fields after that resolution was passed. But I'm asking my fellow commissioners to either tonight or next month set up this subcommittee. If we don't do it, we're going to have people like Kelly upset and organizing to come here, and the park's going to go downhill again.
Thank you, Commissioner Armstrong. I would like to say most of the commission knows the whole bottom line of this is getting money. Money seems to be, every time we bring up a project, it costs money. And I'm holding here, we've gone to the Measure J every month, and possibly that would be a good place for us to suggest people to speak to Measure J about the money, because here is the list of the 21 million where it went to this year. And we did get some of it, but how much fighting we did to get that, and we're still begging and begging for more. And one of the main things is trying to get money for the projects that we do put together. And that is, I think, the number one question. Someone over here had one more question before we go on to Stacy's other presentation.
I'm wondering if a study was ever done When we discussed this a couple months ago, Dr. Reddy said, well, you know, one thing we could do is just put in, resod it 4 times a year. He did make that suggestion. I don't know if it was serious, but he said there was one way to deal with it. Has there ever been a study done, cost-wise, how much it would cost to resod it 4 times a year?
I can look into that. That also includes closures.
Yeah, but closure for a week. I've resodded in 3 days.
But that's a backyard.
Well, sure, but it's only a matter of degree. Okay, a week, 2 weeks.
I'll look into it.
But then you have to have a lot of traffic going on it, so it probably has to take hold at that point. But I would like to ask Stacy to look into that and give you the answer. But with the dog park, Stacy's put together a presentation that she's going to give to us today under number 3 on shades and seating conceptual design. So let's go into that one and see what you have that you want to present to us on the dog park.
Well, basically, we met with a landscape designer, and I think there's hard copies available. Yep, they've been handed out. And again, this is just the conceptual. Everything can be added, removed, moved around. But the idea was that the Demuth temporary large dog park, which is now not so temporary anymore, would potentially have DG. And in the rendering there, it says turf or DG. I strongly recommend DG. Otherwise, we'll be in the same situation with turf. And again, there's trees, there's shade canopies. We obviously stayed pretty consistent with the benches and the fountains with the human pet fountain. So we're trying to stay consistent across the board with what we have. We're also moving forward with those fountains in all of our city parks. We're at least trying to get one in every city park right now. Same thing with the shade canopies. There's different size variations, shapes. The other recommendation that we had, or for you to consider, was the possibility of, there's a section, for those who've been around a long time would know, the old Demuth Playground, which is kind of on the northeast corner there. It's around by the pickleball courts. That playground was removed, but there's this large space now that has sidewalks already around there. It's just filled with sand right now. And I think that might be a really good viable option for us for a potentially another small dog park, again, so that when we have overseeding, we have 2 different options that have DG that won't have the impact of being shut down once or twice a year. And again, this is all conceptual. There's obviously plenty of room for whatever feedback, changes. I'm just trying to get you a starting point.
Can I just share something real quick? Yes. Okay, so I know it's just a rendering, but right here, is this where that's field 7, correct?
Correct.
Okay. We play there quite a bit. Is there a way that we might have to put some kind of netting just for a little bit?
We've actually, recently, somebody asked if we were going to consider netting for the golf balls. Apparently, that's terrorizing a few dogs in there. So we may have to look at some kind of additional netting on both sides.
Both sides, huh?
Commissioner Goodman?
Yeah, thank you. 2 things. One, I would really love to establish the subcommittee with community members so we can get some input. That's the first recommendation. And then another thing that we talked about at our subcommittee meeting is that the dog park provides opportunities for some community members who might otherwise be isolated. And one of the things and we visit the dog parks frequently, one of the things we might want to consider is cluster seating. And that is something that Rancho Mirage had. They had the shade structure in the center of the park with cluster seating. And people gather in clusters, and people like to socialize. And, of course, that's where a lot of personal chairs come in because our parks just don't accommodate it. So, one, I do think we need to meet with community members on the subcommittee and get input. But that's one of the things that I did notice. And if I could say also on the City Hall, I'm going to make a recommendation that it not be all grass. I think that whether it is sodded or reseeded, I think the grass ultimately will be worn out on more than a regular basis, be cost, will have costs, and it'll close parks for long periods of time. And I think a nice combination. But again, I think the subcommittee needs community members.
I do like your concept of maybe DG and Demuth and Grass here. That way, only one has to be closed. We have another one that can remain open. Someone had a hand up over here I saw out of the corner of my eye. It's hard to see over here.
I'll go. I got a quick question.
Commissioner Crawford.
Does Rancho Mirage allow dogs in all parks? I know that we allow dogs in all of our parks, correct?
Not supposed to.
Yeah.
On a leash, on leashes. I don't know about Rancho Mirage.
They have a leash law.
They have leash laws, so they
Most of them do.
So they only have, the dogs can only go to their dog park, correct? Off leash? But can they go on leash in the regular parks in Rancho Mirage? No? That's what I was trying to clarify. So we actually allow dogs in all of our parks. So we have.
On a leash.
Not off leash.
Yes, I understand that, but I'm just saying, we actually have 2 dog parks that are on leash, or off leash, and then dogs are allowed in all the parks. And Rancho Mirage only has 1 dog park.
We have only one in that temporary one in Duluth, which we're not going to consider our dog park until they fix it.
Yeah. So that was just kind of my question. What does the other cities, since we're comparing to Rancho Mirage, do they allow dogs in their other parks?
We should find out. I think we should call them.
Yeah, I'd just like to say that especially to the members of the public, and Kelly, to other people who have enormous goodwill and energy around this, I'm not a dog owner, so I'm letting other voices at the table speak to this issue more than me. But one of the things that I think, especially when you have this amount of energy and attention, that would be helpful is we are simply an advisory body. And when it comes down to it, no matter what we advise or even recommend or vote on is ultimately controlled by the dollars and the policy that is above us. And that is city council and the city manager's office. And in some cases, as we went to a Measure J subcommittee meeting, simply to ask for additional monies that could be put towards City of Palm Springs Parks projects. We would very much like to, I would personally, I won't speak for my other commissioners, suggest that some of those energies that you have from the people go and make your voices heard at those levels as well, because there's only so much we can do at this level.
Commissioner Goodman?
My instinct is that these drawings happened because there was a suggestion from the city. And so I would be led to believe, just instinctually, that the city has some interest in this. And I'm not feeling like we have to lobby Measure J or encourage Measure J to use alternative funds. I mean, we didn't give the directive to do this. And so that's just my instinct. So I am very pleased, and I'd like to see this move forward as quickly as possible before there's a change of mind. I see Marcus is here. I don't know if he has any comments.
Last week, Commissioner Cohen, Commissioner Caldonado, and Stacy, what's your name again?
That girl.
Cynthia and I were running down the hall of City Hall, and David Reddy stopped us, and he was so excited about this, he wanted to talk to us. We had like 2 minutes because we were trying to get to a meeting. And we said, hold that, we'll get back to you. And we wanted to get back to him, but he is behind this 100%, it looks like, so things are moving forward, because he said, I just came back from Demuth Park, and I was just down there looking at what they're going to do with some of the things. And so it is moving, I guess, forward without direction or initiative, from what he's... Cynthia, I left you there talking to him when we walked on.
My conversation switched topics.
Oh, there's Marcus back there hiding.
Good evening. I'm carrying David's request to this commission that we are eagerly wanting to move forward with a recommendation to council for developing these other 2 dog areas at Demuth and then improving this one. So obviously we need to get stakeholder input on what's the most appropriate solutions for these dog parks. I was involved, as you know, with the retrofit of this one, and turf was a big debate. I think, as I recall, we bid an alternate for the synthetic turf, and it was exorbitantly expensive and had all the other negative consequences with its use. So I think, if we don't reseed, then the Bermuda goes dormant and you're left with dirt. If we don't have it closed for at least 6 weeks, then the new germinated ryegrass will be eaten up by the dogs, just by the activity. So we're trying to find the right balance of allowing that ryegrass to germinate enough so that it can withstand all of that high use. I think at the end of the day, turf is just not an appropriate solution for a dog park that has a significant use.
Footprint like that, yeah.
And we may end up getting to that point at some point, but we want to allocate the resources and provide the maintenance and improvements at the dog parks that satisfies the stakeholders, because it is a significant resource for the community. So we're ready to implement that and pursue funding for it, whether through Measure J or through general funds, once we have a recommendation from this commission. So we hope to arrive at that solution as soon as possible.
If I may comment.
Commissioner Gill.
Thank you. One of the questions that came up in our subcommittee meeting is really what was the process and what's the protocol for adding community members to subcommittees? That wasn't really clear to us. And so I'm wondering, since we're at this kind of crossroads, and Commissioner Armstrong, whatever your thoughts are, maybe we hold a community meeting and we post at the dog park and we bring stakeholders in, like we did with Swim Center, like we did with pickleball, and really solicit thoughts and comments and needs, and at the same time present. I mean, really, 4 years ago, we spent $350,000, and we're back at the table to spend $350,000 again. And there's got to be a long-term solution, and it has to be a compromise. And so I'm just wondering if maybe in the next few weeks we could invite everyone in for a discussion. I don't know your thoughts.
Are you saying in lieu of trying to establish some kind of subcommittee right now, in addition? I think we could have a meeting when the dog park reopens, and there are going to be a lot of people there waiting. So sometime around that time during the holidays, maybe, if we can get the approval of the commission. And then I don't know if we need a motion for the subcommittee. But I do want to make a couple comments. We had a long meeting and we had kind of an action plan that we probably don't need to go over tonight. But I do want to say, people like to Kelly and, this has been an issue of mine. That's why I got involved with the city 10 years ago. But on the positive side, this little triangle right here, and I have all the emails, I think it was back in 2013 or 2014, a man named Stewart went to the dog park. He had 2 Scotties. He bugged the Public Works Department and bugged them, and a couple of the fellows went around with him to all the parks. And he identified this spot back then. And it percolated through the city system. Maybe no one remembers that anymore, but he did enough to get it in people's memories. So this is an example of citizen, involvement. It may have taken 5 or 6 years, but at the time we were told, no, the balls are going to come and hit people on the head. You can't do this. There's no parking. There's this and that. They're going to run into the golf course. No. He persisted. He got people interested in it. Vicki went and looked at it, and here we are today with actual plan. I mean, it is our temporary park, but a plan for a more permanent park that would fulfill some of the goals of the park's master plan. So, when people are getting down and unhappy, it may take a while, but there is progress in the city of Palm Springs. So I just wanted to say that as a positive thing, and I would hope that maybe we could make a motion to set up a subcommittee and have our meeting. So.
At Marcus's suggestion, could we ask for a recommendation that we direct their office to move forward on this and present to council? Would someone like to entertain that motion for us on the floor? Our approval?
I'm in.
Go ahead, Johnny.
Yeah,
Commissioner Coldonado.
I put a motion in that we get this going. And
That the Parks and Recreations recommends that they move forward with the council. We have approval of what has been presented to us? Is that what you're saying? Would that be the motion that you'd like to hear?
No.
I would say have the subcommittee meet with the community so that they can go over
Before
the
they
Can't take this,
concepts.
because we haven't asked
Right.
anybody if this works.
Because, I mean, for all we know, the community may want less grass and more DG just so that we can not have so many issues like we have at the
Right.
City Hall Dog Park.
Okay, so how about a motion that the subcommittee has a community meeting with the dog park community and come back at the December meeting and report back the results so that we can direct staff to bring forward recommendations to the council.
Could I have a second to that? Commissioner Cohen seconds it. Any discussion?
Just a question about the timing of it, when when do you think the dog park will reopen?
12th, 18th?
We can look at hosting it at inside for now to just get the ball moving and then have another meeting as the dog park opens, just so that we can begin conversation and not hold the process back.
I just wondering when our next meeting
Is the 23rd of December.
23rd, so we could,
Post on the 18th, 17th, 18th, 19th.
Have a Right.
meeting on the morning of the 23rd or
yeah, sometime, yeah.
evening of the 20th?
23rd, I believe, is our next meeting. Our next meeting is scheduled for the 23rd that we'll discuss if it's happening.
So that leaves us with hosting a meeting maybe on the 21st of December. It's a Saturday morning. Maybe we could use the pavilion or a room somewhere by the dog park.
The
What are your
pavilion will be
thoughts?
hosting breakfast with Santa that
Oh, that
morning.
day. You
But
guys
we
are
could
busy.
do a later in the afternoon after Santa's left the building.
Commissioner Armstrong, what's your schedule? Does that maybe work for you?
I can do that, and maybe we could ask Kelly to help promote it, so we could get
Kelly,
people there.
does a Saturday meeting work, do you think? Give the park, the dog park community 3 days to arrive and read posts and,
What do you say we push for that? If it doesn't work out, we'll have to move it to our January meeting, but we'll try our best to get it in our December.
perfect, okay.
Do we have approval of all the commissioners on that motion that way? All approve? Abstain? Nays? Okay, so that's what we'll move forward with then. Commissioner Cohen?
Quick question, because Ellen had brought this up. Do we have a dog park subcommittee?
We do.
Yes, we do.
So I thought you were suggesting that we
Yes.
needed to form one.
Commissioner Armstrong, Commissioner Goodman are on it.
With community members that want to add.
So just a question, because this has been asked about other subcommittees, and there's been discussion. I think we need to decide as a body when it's helpful to have community members on an actual Parks and Recreation subcommittee versus ones that can give us input either publicly or at a meeting or what have you. I'm not sure what the difference is. And if we're going to begin asking people to join ad hoc committees, then the question becomes, how do we choose them?
Right.
Well, that's another question too, whether it's ad hoc or standing, but you could ask them to join an ad hoc committee. And the question is, how do you choose them? How do you keep it fair? How do you pick the numbers and all those things? It gets to be a larger question. So if you're going to do that and then make sure that it's diverse and representative of the community, what have you, I think we're going to get into a larger discussion.
That is our topic 6. Number
okay.
6 down there.
Then I will defer to topic 6.
Yes, and we had that conversation at the subcommittee meeting. We had the same questions, and we would love if the city could provide us with what that protocol process is so that we could move forward. The dog park subcommittee, we're very clear we need community members and more than one. And so
But on the committee or just to give the committee input?
on the subcommittee.
And help me understand, because this will be helpful for the other subcommittees, what makes it special that you need people on the subcommittee? Why on the subcommittee do you feel will be necessary?
Oh, I think there's a lot of benefits. I will let Commissioner Armstrong answer that.
Let's bring that up in our topic 6 when we get there. Let's go through topic 5 first on our agenda. Stay at it. The topic 5 on the agenda was our student commissioner process, and at the last meeting, we directed Cynthia to put together some information on our student commissioner process. She sent it out to us, what she has put together. Cynthia, do you have something you'd like to present to us with that?
So when you guys were emailed the agenda and the minutes, there was also two attachments to the student commissioner. I was asked in the last meeting to reach out to the Human Rights Commission. I never got a response. However, sustainability did have a process in place. So what you see is before you is what sustainability shared with us, which is the letter basically reaching out to the school district requesting a student. I did leave the date highlighted because obviously this is just a draft and that can change.
I sent it to the school.
Okay. So,
There were no instructions.
so then the letter basically introduces what we're looking for, gives a deadline. It's signed by both Patrick Tellerico and myself. Patrick is the sustainability manager. And then the other attachment was basically what we're looking for in a student commissioner and the application. So if the commission is okay with this packet, then we can move forward on sending it forward and recruiting for that student commissioner.
Commissioner comments, questions? Commissioner Goodman.
Yeah, so my apologies in advance. I assumed it went out. I don't recall seeing instructions, which is not uncommon because I tend to overlook things.
Nope, they asked me to just bring forth a process and that's what it was. But
Okay.
they've basically seemed like they're saying okay, so we
Well,
might
and
be okay.
the reason why I sent it was I was a bit concerned with the timeline, at least for the schools. So this week, schools are out, and then they come back, and then just for a few weeks, and then they're out again until from December 23rd until January 13th. So the timeline is not a timeline that I think would work, which is why I wrote to the school to ask them what they thought about the timeline and had they received it. So I just think, I think it's great. I haven't heard back from them because they're out for Thanksgiving. But I think the timeline should probably be moved to maybe January, February.
Do we have any other comments? I think it's a wonderful concept, what you've put together. And yes, we know that we do have to work with the dates as we get ready to put it out there. Do we have any other questions, or should we direct her to put this into a working order? I would like to make a motion that we direct her to put this into movement and put it out to the schools. Could I have a second to that? Commissioner Diaz seconds, and all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Okay, our next section is reports and updates from our ad hoc committees. The last time Cynthia asked us to find out what we wanted to do about putting people on our committees, how we wanted to go about putting a community member, non-commission member on our ad hoc committees, and how many, and dates and times that we would be meeting. I'll start it out with our Measure J met. We can't see anyone wanting to be on our Measure J committee because all we do is go beg for funds for every other function. We really don't do any process except keep our name in front of Measure J. So we didn't find any reason to have a community member on our committee, and we accepted to meet on an as-need basis. And so that would be the Measure J subcommittee. Could I have, Travis, do you have something to report on your dog park?
Sure. So Ellen and I met, and we've actually talked a lot about what we discussed. But to Commissioner Cohen's question about the policy, and, why, there used to be a subcommittee for the dog park. I was on it. And then one day I was told we're no longer having subcommittees. I wasn't given a reason why, but I think there was a change at the city at that point. The reasons why the dog park really needs it is because, first of all, we have at least a decade of strife and turmoil and people being unhappy, and there have been decisions made without the users of the dog park. And so we really need, as I said earlier, we can't keep going back and forth in this cycle, To the number, I think there was discussion, one was really not adequate. The dog park, there's the main dog park. Some people have the large dog park. Any dog can go into that park. That's for all dogs. There's a small dog park set aside for small dogs. They're together, but in some ways, they're really two different parks. The issues going on at the main dog park or the larger space can be the same, but are often different than the smaller dog park that has actually sort of a different clientele too. The dogs are obviously smaller, but there's older people. It is their social space, there's the different things going on in the park in terms of the usage and the people using them. So I think we need expertise, at least 2 people, and then maybe somebody from the Muth community, as well. So just in terms of precedent, sustainability had non-commissioner members on their committees. I remember when I was on the water subcommittee, we had people, frankly, we had the opposite problem of so many people wanting to be on. We had people that were willing to get on. People just volunteered because there was a commitment, particularly if they met every month. We had people, and then they kind of fell on the wayside as time went by. It wasn't like we had so many people. So it was sort of like whoever asked to be on it. I don't know another model, though, sustainability for their active transportation committee. When some of the commissioners left who were very into biking and bike lanes left, the committee kind of fell apart. It got reconstituted as sort of an advisory panel. So they weren't like really formal subcommittee members. They were, helping the subcommittee. So that's kind of another model as well. And I think in terms of timing, I think it's going to have to be kind of ad hoc. We have these meetings coming up, and then see what happens if we do get approval to add members. For the process, I think we talked about that we would post it, and we would ask the commission who they want to be the people interviewing, the chair, maybe people on the subcommittee, the director, whatever the commission decides.
So is there anything standing whatsoever beyond our ad hoc that we have done for each of these different topics?
We're all
That there-
ad hoc. Everything is ad hoc now.
I'm asking if there is standing rules or regulations or protocol within any city commission group for any of this, so we have something to start from.
Not that I'm aware of, and not that Cynthia's aware of. Commissioner Cohen.
To that comment, and also to Commissioner Armstrong's comment, I'd like to suggest that we'll be wading into difficult waters, complex waters, if we begin to invite people onto an appointed body as a subcommittee in terms of gender equity, diversity equity, all kinds of things, numbers. People can question why we're doing it. And my question for us is, can we extract the same value, and might we be able to get even more value from more stakeholders if we're doing what Commissioner Goodman, for instance, is suggesting? Well, isn't it more important for the subcommittee to have a stakeholders meeting, a public meeting, where anybody who's interested can give their comment, rather than have people, again, feel like they are gatekeepers and they speak for the community? And we've seen this go bad. I've seen this go bad even in the short amount of time I've been here, my tenure as compared to Commissioner Armstrong's and others, where people say they speak for a particular community, the pickleball community, the tennis community, and they're not. And it's much more valuable, has been for me, to get the input at a public meeting. If we have people then who are now invited onto a subcommittee, I think we're opening up a number of other good questions for ourselves around representation and diversity. And how do we do that? And if we're going to do it, much to Commissioner Diaz's point, there needs to be direction from the city about protocol and from the city's attorney, so that we don't have that. We're not creating the wheel here and taking that on as liability.
And I think as the ad hoc committees have come along, and I've been part of the swim center ad hoc committee, as well as the restroom ad hoc committee, as well as the pickleball. Having those open public forums where we're hearing from all the constituents, those that think they're speaking for everybody, and those, I mean, we are open to listening to everyone and then pulling from there and then giving a representation, of the majority of folks that are there, bringing the information forward here. I don't disagree or agree. I just think those public forums are so important for the group of people that the topic is, a very hot issue. So I think that those need to continue, and I'm not really sure. I think if once you start adding more subcommittees and more meetings and more things, and I don't know if it leads to more progress or less progress, I'm not really sure. But I have seen in those 3 ad hoc committees that I've been on that is a really great way of, getting information rather than one community member always, that's all you hear from. And, we listen and we hear, but we'd like to hear even those ones that like to sit in the corner and have their own perspective as well, and that gives them an opportunity to do that.
Commissioner Armstrong, you said you'd like to leave it ad hoc. Did you mean as needed for the meetings also?
For our meeting times.
As needed?
Yeah.
Okay. The next one that we have to hear from would be Commissioner Caldonado on the swim committee and at the same time, the Parks Naming Committee.
So we haven't, I haven't reached out to Les or to Jody about the swim committee yet.
Okay.
And as far as the naming, I thought Commissioner Armstrong was going to be a part of that. I'd like to have his input on some of the naming, helping us with naming, or the protocol, as far as naming maybe the parks or a bench or a tree or something. So I haven't pushed that envelope, haven't opened that up yet.
Okay. I have someone who has contacted us that would like to be on your committee from the community.
Okay.
His name is, he's on a couple other boards in this town. His name's Gary Keefe. Commissioner.
Chairman, you're suggesting that we add somebody from the public to the committee. I think I would like to have this commission make a formal vote as to if we're going to do that and how we do that, because I don't feel comfortable about just handling a committee to committee. Thank you.
He has just come to us and said he would like to work with it. So that's something to keep in mind, huh?
The naming committee?
Yes. Any idea why? So you will get back to us on what you're going to do for meeting times on your parks and swim. Charlie, I think, Commissioner Lamort, I think you talked to your group and have something to report on the restroom.
Yeah, well, first of all, I think it's important to know that everybody who uses the bathroom is a stockholder. And so therefore, if you would ask it, I don't know how many people would be interested in bothering with it. I think personally, there's an expertise that's needed in developing a sanitary situation. Cynthia came up with the idea and a suggestion that we meet with one of the designers who is coming up, I think it was Sunrise Park. We haven't met yet, but we, as a committee, want to meet with the person who is going to design this specific facility, just to see what the ideas are. Whether we need someone, as you suggested, that maybe 1 or 2 people. But I kind of agree with David. I think in this situation, we're talking about some expertise is needed. Everyone's going to say, yeah, we want it to look nice. Everyone's going to say, we want it clean. Everyone is going to say, it has to be sanitary. So I think the way that I would like to see it happen is we will meet with the designers as they come up with their situation and how we're going to spend the money that's Measure J gave us. And we kind of decided, I got a response from 2 people, that it's probably as needed. I don't think that there has to be a regular meeting every 2 weeks, because we're really dependent upon staff and when the engineer can meet with us or when the designer can meet with us. So I think it's an as-need basis as well.
Okay. At the Measure J meeting, engineer Don, I can't think of his last name, did say that he would be, the person would be out of town until after Thanksgiving, but they do want to meet with us on the conceptual plans the week after Thanksgiving. Commissioner Crawford.
One thing I just wanted to bring up is the times. Once again, I hear a lot about the restrooms, and most of the people that are complaining, they cannot make it until after 5. So I understand we have to meet with the city and the engineers and all that, but it isn't going to do us any justice if all of our meetings are between 8 to 5. That's one of the reasons we kind of moved this one back, so that we could make it available to people. And once again, I was able to join the committee because we moved the time back, but I cannot meet during the day. I work. So that's one of the things that came to my mind.
Thank you, Commissioner Crawford. I was going to Commissioner Goodman to report on her subcommittee of pickleball, but you have a question also? You can put them all together.
Yes, actually, pickleball. Oh, we did have a phone conversation, didn't we? So we met, we had a phone conversation. Did we discuss, is Jody on the pickleball?
I show Ellen, Johnny, and David on the pickleball.
Can you add Jody, please? No. No.
You're back on it.
No, we did have a phone conversation. I can't remember what we said, so I'm going to turn it over.
And lots of hours invested in that pickleball, so.
I'm going to turn it over to Johnny to kind of speak on it. I want to just comment on Commissioner Crawford's comment, which I think is really great. I really like the idea of community meetings. We've had many of them with just about every committee we've had. Swimming, pickleball, we've had community. We're having them with the dog park, and I really think that's a place for the public to really have an opportunity. And we've had ours on Saturdays, because it really just suits. And we've had them in locations that are conducive to the community. So Swim Center was at the Swim Center and so forth. So I really encourage that. I don't know if a Parks and Recs meeting at 7 p.m. would really satisfy that, but I do think these community meetings can. I'm sorry, I'm going to need to leave, and so I'll turn it over to Johnny for pickleball. And Jody, we're never off the committee.
Apparently I am. You guys are doing stuff without me.
Well, you're going to be back on it, that's for sure. So we had a brief discussion over the phone, and a lot of what we discussed was how to talk to Measure J about some of the money that we talked about as far as the Sunrise Park facility, and how the pickleball community needed another facility that we can build upon. That was pretty much it.
Yeah, we didn't talk about community participation, aside from just having meetings.
Right. So you will be part of our discussion moving forward, for sure. David, is there anything that...
No, I think you both summarized it. I mean, there was nothing pressing. There's maintenance is being done. There's need for both at the tennis facilities as well as the pickleball facilities, but it's being addressed as best we can within both the time frames that we have compressed for the season, people being there, and the monies that are available now. And really, you summarized it well, which was in order to do anything more substantial, we need to have the funding, and that gets into a bigger issue, and that's why we agree that potentially Measure J funds, or if the city can find other monies available, that will allow us to do more and address the needs. There is a big need out there for more facilities.
Does this pretty much give you the update of what the subcommittees will be doing? Could I ask Commissioner Armstrong to maybe at our next meeting provide to us some background of what was the pros and cons of having someone from the non-commission on those in the past, and how that was handled, and present it to us so that we can get a better understanding of it at our next meeting? Okay, so that ends the discussion that we updated of our subcommittees of where we're going, and everybody is working and meeting and working with that. That brings us to commissioner comments. Can we start with Commissioner Diaz? Do you have any comments to, I'm sorry. Did you want to make yours first?
Just because I have to leave. I would love to see that the swim center be on the next agenda. I love what Tom put together, and so that would do, thanks.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go this way then.
One of the comments I'd like to say is Stacy's been doing a great job with the parks, over at Demuth Park especially. The grass is extremely coming in nice. The trees look good. We've got some good things going on with the dog parks. And Kelly, thank you for your presence and your patience and helping us out. And we're gonna get something going. This is a good start. So I'm looking forward to them softball fields getting done too, and the baseball fields. But that's about it, and I want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Commissioner Crawford? Commissioner Mort? Commissioner Armstrong?
Yeah, I just want to agree with Alan. I would like to have this on some agenda, and not asking for an answer, but the premise seemed to be if we increase users, we're going to get more revenue, and I just wondered if that was really how much really more money would be, and also, capacity issues, because it seems like the swim center is pretty busy. Do we need, I'm not against these signage, but is there something that we have a lot more capacity that we could fill?
My only concern with all of that is most of my swimmers don't like to share lanes. And so when we do have to share lanes, it becomes a problem. So
Commissioner Cohan?
No comments?
Commissioner Diaz?
Sharing is caring,
circle swimming works.
and they need to learn how to do that. I was going to comment on that gentleman's packet and proposal that they sent us, or that he gave to us tonight. I understand where he's coming from, where there is no signage, and that should be something that's for all of our parks. There should be signage so that we can increase usage, and just so the public can say, oh, I didn't know this was here. And maybe they would at least swing by and give it a try. And again, if they don't know it's there and they don't use it, then we don't get their input.
So if you're okay, if we put this on the next agenda, aquatic staff wanted to present an idea to almost do like a tiled mosaic at the front portion of the aquatic center where they could sell tiles and the community could decorate them, and then they would be placed where it would say something like Palm Springs Swim Center. I will try to get them to finish up their concept so that they can bring it forward and present here, because I think it would be a fantastic idea to help bring in the community to put on some of that signage and decor, at least in that area.
Okay.
I think that's acceptable.
Now you sidetracked me. And I wanted to ask, what's the acreage of the new Demuth proposal park there? Does anybody know?
Does it say anything on there?
I couldn't see it on our copies. But Travis, is that a reasonable size? Is that? Okay. I was just wondering in comparison.
We can get that for the next meeting?
And I guess that's it.
That's it? Okay. I would like to thank the commissioners for our Veterans Day program. We had Johnny, David, Charlie, and myself show up. We gave out the challenge coins to the veterans, and it was a very fun time. They were so appreciative of receiving those challenge coins. And then the two of them carried the banner and prayed for all others that wanted to march in the parade with it. And I want to thank the commission for being involved at the last minute with that. Mark your calendars. December 21st is Breakfast with Santa in the pavilion. Every year, there's people from our counselors there, and our commission is always there to meet with Santa and the kids and see what all is going on. So as many as can come that day, I would appreciate having some commissioners there. We'll send out a reminder. What time is it? It's 8 to 12 on the 21st of December. Which brings us to another quick question. December 23rd is our next scheduled commission meeting. There was talk about should we move it from someone asked me. It is our regular scheduled meeting. It's our regular scheduled meeting date. Is anyone have a problem? Will we have a quorum if we have our meeting on the 23rd? You'll be here, you'll be here. You can do it here if you want to while we're doing it. Then we will continue with our meeting on the December 23rd as scheduled. And if there are no other comments, Commissioner Lamort.
Remember, December 2nd, all commissioners are going to a meeting at, is it at
Yes,
the Civic Center?
at the Convention Center.
Convention Center, I think it's
11:15?
Yeah, and I'll be working, so.
Okay.
But we'll tell you what it was.
Sure.
I do have one more announcement.
Commissioner, or Director
Who will be a
Alvarez.
commissioner? I heard back from Proposition 68 for the grants that we submitted, and we will be getting a walkthrough, which means we are in the next step of being
Oh,
reviewed,
congratulations.
so, all right.
Commissioner Diaz.
I was quiet all meeting just for the note.
I know.
I just wanted to say, and I know that he addressed it not too long ago, a few minutes back, David did, but when people come to speak to us, they always say, you guys, you put the faucet outside, you guys built the pickleball this way, you guys, us guys don't have that authority. So we're just I just want to put that out there. We're a council, elected commission. We don't get paid. This is a position that we are elected to do, and we do it because we have passion for the things that are here, and we have just as much passion as the public does over particular items. And so I feel really bad when they say, you guys aren't doing anything. We're doing everything. We're listening. We're doing the best we can. I just want to remind the public that if I had that power, so many things would be done, but we have to go through our steps and take those things. And so just a reminder, I think even this evening, that was it was, you guys did this, and we're doing a lot, but we're not in control of everything. So just wanted to state that.
Thank you, Commissioner. We are advisors to the council and recommend what we pass through here. We don't have the final say. If they see it and they don't agree with us, it does not always go our way, but we are advisors to them and appointed by them. And I do thank you for that comment. If there are no other comments, I'd like to move that the commission meeting is closed until December, I'm sorry, someone's pointing?
Did you need, Cynthia, did you have something?
No.
I did already.
The meeting is adjourned until December 23rd.